Good morning. Welcome to the December 7th, 2021 Effingham Board of Selectmen's meeting. Before we get started, would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Okay, in the signature folder, make a motion to approve the selectmen's minutes of the November 30, 2021 meeting. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, for aye?
Aye.
We have a letter which we signed as a result of the presentation from Tamworth last week, where we would basically be willing to be part of a committee from a discussion standpoint, but not enter into any formal arrangement. So that will go out today. And we had 2 timber cuts this morning. And the manifest this week, make a motion to approve the manifest for December 9, 2021 in the amount of $307,601.01. Do I hear a second?
Second.
It's a school payment, guys. All those in favor, full or aye?
County.
Oh, county payment, I'm sorry, county.
Aye. Aye.
We still have a school, okay. We had, in the mail this week, we had a property tax payer that submitted a document where they're basically not happy with the property taxes. And I'm sure they're not alone, this person just voiced it. Administrator comments.
Okay, I'm catching up and getting back from vacation. A&B Lock is coming on December 9th to finalize the police station. And Kevin Cody is going to hopefully have the garage door installed at the used oil on 12/22. And from my last report, I understand that Clean Harbors came, correct?
Just to test.
To test, and then they'll give us a quote to take away the old oil barrels. And based on some of the things I saw, we're gonna be discussing later. Looks like maybe I have to get a bid out, things like that.
Well, yep, we'll
Yeah,
talk about
and
that.
Yeah, I have to get Evans their road contract.
Okay.
That's
And you want to cover the bank balances? We pop them together, you want me to do it?
Well, you had requested the bank balances, so we've been maintaining a spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet I provided you has 4 months on it. I'm not sure what your goal was. Obviously, we have plenty of money in the bank. The town's
That's the
quite
most-
healthy.
That's the important part is,
Yes.
is the messaging around, the 1.3 million in the checking account,
Yes,
which puts us in a very solid position, which in years past, you could have looked at that, you had nowhere near that kind of money. Yeah, this year, you had last year, but years before that, more questionable.
the trust funds need to be addressed too. So I gave you a copy of the budget to see if you want to request anything from the trustees of the trust funds to cover any overage.
When's their meeting, this week, next week?
Oh, gosh, it's
It's coming up.
Thursday. They're hoping to meet Thursday. So I didn't have a lot of notice. She actually sent me the note last night, so I was ahead of her, but nothing much. They had, she kept saying, she said twice in her email to me that she wanted to make sure she had all the deposits done. And we did all that about 3 weeks ago. So they have that check sitting there. And she knows that there's a request for the Conservation Commission. That I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to draw any money out of the trust funds on.
Have either of you looked at the sheets to make that determination? If not, we'll do a meeting tomorrow. Look at it overnight in detail and meet tomorrow. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah. we can do that.
All right, what time? 10?
Sounds fine with me.
10? 10, okay. Could you just announce that? Okay, so then what we'll do is we'll review that whole trust fund document and then look at the budget sheets and determine where we want money to come from.
If you can make it 11, you might actually give me 24 hours to get it posted.
Okay, let's do.
Oh my gosh.
Yep, that's good.
Okay, and then the other thing we need to consider, and it can, you can discuss it tomorrow or wait a week, is things that we need to encumber.
Yep, I was gonna lay that out today, that we could
All right,
have
yeah,
that discussion, so. do some
yeah,
homework.
I have a couple items listed. Okay. That's all I have.
All right, and just as a, again, reiterating, the checkbook balance as of November 30, 2021 was $1,338,992 and change. The special fund that we set up for the transfer station, where all the fees coming in the transfer station go into that fund to be used for the transfer station down the road after an approval at a town meeting for expenditure. So the money's being accumulated, it cannot be distributed until something's presented at town meeting and passed. The balance in that fund as of November 30, 2021 is $44,779.24. We did discuss a couple weeks ago, Lenny's doing some homework on it right now. We need to address the retaining wall where the glass bin is because it's caving in, it was improperly installed. And the two of the dumpsters we have right there right now are setting in gravel. And because of the way they have to pull them up, we're now digging holes, so the dumpsters don't even set level anymore. So we need to do some concrete pads, we need to do a concrete wall, and Lenny's working on getting that in. All right. All done, Audrey?
I am.
Okay, good. Lenny?
Kind of late, Audrey got a hold of Kevin Cody. Thank God she can get him, because I can't. So you heard that, the shouldering on Townhouse Road. I see Ron's shoulder machine, he must have took it back and off, he left gravel in it and it's frozen right solid, so. Probably trying to thaw it out, but now the snow's come, frost, so I don't know what's gonna get done as far as roads go. And the oil tank, Audrey get the update on that, it's all welded, they want to powder coat it this week and ship it out.
Do we get to choose the color or just?
I mean, they've
Yeah, I
been
know.
telling us, you know, the second week in November was gonna be shipped out. You know,
Yep,
and now it's just getting welded, so. Whatever,
with a lot of the supply issues, I'm surprised we're getting it this soon.
but it's all I got right now.
Okay, the blue books, we'll check on where the blue barrels are. I think that order went in, did it not?
I believe it did, yeah.
Okay, well, that's Audrey.
Put together.
All right.
Put it in there.
I mean, we have one plastic blue barrel that, if we get caught in the jam, after next week, we start taking oil. We do have
And
one.
then, and they're gonna be pumping that one, right?
Um,
There's stuff in the bottom of it.
Yeah,
the
there was-
sludge.
yeah, but I mean, they can.
As long as it's clean and it tests clean, we could use it. If we have to clean it, I'm not sure we wanna keep it, it'd be cheaper to buy a new one.
But I don't know how they'll make out with the base because there's a lot of water in the base and it's frozen right now. So.
Hopefully they'll have a way to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Taking the whole
they plan
thing.
on taking it, but they
Right.
won't be able to pump it out.
Right. They won't do it.
Thought of.
Yep.
Yeah, that was, when I met the guy over there, we gotta get rid of the barrels. Base, the whole thing. He's aware of it.
Okay,
And he took a sample and get it tested. And he'll let us know what it's gonna cost.
okay. That it?
Yep.
Tom?
No, I didn't have to follow,
Okay.
you know, situation, man, so.
All right, good. All right, let's dive into a couple things here. Green Mountain Road bid spec sheet. We need to get this advertised. Any changes that need to be made to the form itself?
The only thing I saw, just a question, about the shouldering, are we gonna include shouldering or
We,
pay Ron to do that?
in the last 2 years, we've used Ron because he was cheaper.
Okay,
We just need to make sure from a scheduling standpoint that we've got him on target with the money in the budget to do that.
that was the only question I had. I mean, other than that, it looked pretty good.
You good with it too? Okay. And we'll put this out to bid for Green Mountain Road paving next year. So grind, reclaim, pave. It's also going to add in a section of the road quite a bit of new material because of the swamp area that it goes over right now, and it's really bad. And those bids will go out, and I believe they come back in February 1st, is when we'll open those up and see where we're at. All right, so that one's done. There was a bunch of emails that I saw when I got back being traded around, possibly rec budget item.
Yeah,
And I basically asked Matt what the extent of the issue would be by not approving it or putting it as a separate warrant article. And they basically came back and said, if we don't put it into the operating budget, even at 10 and then modify it on the floor, that they're not gonna let the kids use the rec from January through town meeting. So
yeah.
I think there's a feeling by the different comments I've heard at the budget committee that, they know it's gonna pass. They just don't want to be the ones to move it from 10 to 30. So I don't know how you feel about it. Right now, we had agreed we would put it in a separate warrant article, but
Yeah,
after this email scenario, I don't think we ought to do that.
yeah, they're kind of holding the knife to that throat.
It's cheap. The issue, and I understand from their standpoint,
Yeah,
this is a cheap deal for Effingham
but I mean,
because it's not even coming anywhere near the cost.
but I mean, just by having Warren article and then saying no, because then you can't use it until after town meeting.
Town's still gonna have to vote on it one way or the other.
Right,
And we know right now that because if it goes in at the 10 that's been approved by the budget committee, there's gonna be some floor discussion on that issue.
we gotta do something.
So let's put the 10 on.
Yeah,
So
Just the 10.
recommend put the 10 into the operating budget. Okay,
yeah, like we had. and then-
all right.
Do you want to vote on it today? I have a sheet to try for the 10.
No, it's actually, we did 30. We approved 30. We're keeping the 30. What we had talked about was removing what we had signed.
Right.
We're not gonna remove it. We're gonna keep ours in at 30 and the budget committee will do theirs at 10.
Okay.
So,
We're gonna keep yours the same.
so I'll let the budget chair know we're agreeable to doing that if we can do it. Okay, the fire warden, last year, we're going to move the fire warden title back into the fire department. And we had a discussion with Mr. Thompson that he would really like to have one more year out of a 3-year appointment so that he could get his 50 years in as the fire warden, and we agreed to that. In discussions with the state basically wants an acknowledgement by the Board of Selectmen that we are agreeable that he will only serve a year, and that Dick will sign a letter saying he's all done as of 12/31/2021. So Lenny is actually going to work with Dick this week, get those signatures, and Audrey, they will need to send them in. Okay. I think, I'll sign this one. And then Dick signs that.
Sign that.
And Lenny said he'll take it over and get the signature. So. Good. Thank you, sir. sir. I ran into Brad yesterday at the transfer station. We need to take a look at getting a padlock with a key
Yeah,
for the shed out here so you can get into it in the dark. On those blustery nights when things are happening, using that combination lock isn't gonna work. So we could,
we also found it super icy here yesterday, and his agreement is not to come unless there's 4 inches of snow to shovel.
Yep.
So it was pretty slick for all the employees walking in, and Evans didn't come until 10:30 for the even any sand on the driveway. It was pretty nasty out here.
so, well, it was coming down really hard yesterday morning anyway, so I understand why they waited. Because it would have been covered anyway. But from Brad's standpoint, we've got that outline of what his, I'm gonna call it a job description is. I don't see any reason why we can't review that and amend it, to add kind of freezing rain ice.
Yeah, his key opened the old lock like butter, and the 2 that I had for it, I couldn't get him to work. He did, but obviously my hands weren't strong enough. It was nasty.
Yep.
So I'll get a new
New
lock.
lock, key, and that way in the middle of the night, in the middle of a storm, he'll be able to get into it. So,
And we need at least 4 keys. Randy, Brad,
Yep.
1 here, this 1 here.
no, master figure. Well, that'll work. You don't want a key? We use one here.
We can put the master in the boiler room or something, so you guys can have access to it.
Well, that'll work.
We won't tell the public where it is.
All right. Agreeable to that?
Yeah.
Okay, we need it. All right, I mentioned it last week about the, or a week or 2 ago about the NHMA email around the pension. I re-forwarded that to you gentlemen. We need to make a decision. 1, are we gonna do it? And 2, which version of it do we put on a warrant article? So, what I outlined was the NHMA response to us around our capability to add it. We could add it now if we wanted to, or wait till the town meeting. So I'm actually thinking a town vote would probably be the better way to do it, so people understand what we're getting into. Disagreement with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and then for the specific plan itself, the fire and police are in group 2. What I did confirm is that because the police department is part of the pension system right now, group 2, as soon as we ever get to the point where we have a fire chief or fire staff that's salaried in that position more than 35 hours a week, we'll have to pay the pension on that. I did ask the question, with the part-timers that we passed last year, did we, if somebody, because we've got one person that's averaging 30 hours a week or a little bit more now, would we be obligated for the pension? And because of the way the warrant article was worded and passed at the town meeting, there are no benefits with that part-time schedule. So they would not, the part-timer day coverage would not be part of the schedule. So, questions on that? So the question is, which plan do we go with? My personal opinion is we go with group 1.
Was
With
that
the
the plan B, that,
state retirement system.
yeah, the plan B, or whatever you had written down there,
Yeah,
option B?
let me just check, see which option I had on there.
Print it out.
Yeah, so the New Hampshire retirement system was first. And then the other option was a non-qualified deferred comp plan called a 457B plan.
That's it, 457B.
It will be, my vote would be basically to do the group 1 with the New Hampshire retirement system, because you know, Audrey won't be here forever. We hope she'll be here till she's 90, but she may not be here to have forever. And if we are getting in somebody at that time that we need to have the pension with, and they've got any experience in this state, they'd be coming in under group one. I couldn't find any other entities that did 457 plans when I asked the question. So how do you feel?
Well, I'm all right with the group one, that's what I was,
The group one is separate from the fire. and the police.
Correct.
Yes.
That's its only,
Yeah.
it's only covering the staff at a town level. That's why they carve it out. All right, so we'll do group one. We'll put that, we'll develop, create a warrant article for that, and put that up.
Hit the red button, that'll ignore it.
I always love the car warranty.
Yeah.
Okay, create.
Nobody should ever have a car that breaks down now because everybody's had a chance for warranty.
And then some.
3 times a day.
Okay, and I'll work on that language for that one. We did the bid, we did the processing. And, okay, so the other things that I wanted to basically get into as I followed up, I wasn't here most of last week. I didn't get back till Sunday afternoon, but I had a chance to dive into a couple things from my to-do list from Mr. Edwards last week. So I had 3 items that were the big items on there. One was the size of the pipes at Bailey Road culvert that were installed. And as it turns out, we were both correct. There are 24-inch pipes on the upstream side. There are 42-inch pipes on the downstream side. And the reason for the 24 is they could not get any larger pipe in there because of the damage that's occurring with the destruction of that particular bridge. So that's the reason for the 24 and the 42. There was also a request to review the HEB contract. I believe, Mr. Edwards, that was sent to you, so you got it.
Yes, it was.
From that standpoint. So in that particular item, it also shows the timeline around all professional engineering work, bid work, right up through the decisions by the Board of Selectmen prior to the town meeting. And then there was a discussion and question, and it's been the same question a couple times regarding retaining walls for the bridge. So I had a chance to partially review the information, Lawrence. I have not read through it all yet, but I'm going to do that this week. But what I have figured out so far is that the original bid spec that went out was a conceptual bid spec. And there were about 10 or 11, maybe in that range, a number of people that got it. You were one of them. When it came time for the actual work on a proposal, there was a required meeting at the bridge. And there was about 5 or 6 people that showed up for that one. And ultimately, there were only 2 bidders. Part of that discussion and what went out from the engineering firm was, from the concept, have the firm design the bridge and bring back what they recommend be put in, which is exactly what they did, which is exactly what we approved, exactly what went under contract, and exactly what was built. So we'll get into public comment in a minute, but I'm like, we can come back to this one. So from that standpoint, I haven't read through all of it yet, but I promise you, I will get through it before next week. All right, and then from a standpoint of additional notes here. And then we'll have a special meeting tomorrow at 11 to talk about our work session to talk about encumbrances and the list for the town, what needs to go in and come out of the town ETF funds. So that's all I had for this piece. Rebecca's not in yet. She'll be in at 10:30, so we'll be holding the meeting open. Okay, public comment. We can open it up. Lawrence?
On the retaining wall on Snow Road Bridge.
Yep.
The plan in the office shows the retaining wall.
And it shows it as a
This is
conceptual.
what we raised the money for. We raised the money.
No, we actually didn't. We actually had a signed contract prior to the town meeting for the timber bridge. And in that contract, it spelled out what was needed to be there. And I did not, when I was looking at it, see retaining walls.
No,
But
it's not, no, it isn't. It's all combined. It's not, it wasn't broken out. That's true.
and the engineer had the latitude working with the contractor to make sure that the design met state requirements for DOT, as well as the requirements for the USDA, which the professional engineer did. So that's why it was built the way it was built.
So was the bridge approved by the state of America?
They reviewed it, yes. Yeah, I'd see when we originally did this back in 2016, 17, I read a note yesterday where the design you had brought forward, they denied. They wouldn't allow that bridge. They actually wrote a letter to the town on that, referencing you specifically. So once we took that over and we started to redo it, we used the basis for what you had originally had going across that river. But then we basically had to do core borings all over again, because the core borings that had been done were outside the realm of the bridge area. So those were done. The professional engineer worked with DES to make sure that the design that was being proposed would work and be passed. It did. The DOT looked at the document, and the USDA went into it in big detail, and we actually had to make some modifications to the contract to meet the USDA requirements before we actually built the bridge. So multiple agencies looked at it and approved it in the design that was built.
Can I add something? The state came out to do an inspection a week after it was completed, and they anticipate that their final report will come out in December to January timeframe. So I'm in correspondence with them on that.
Thank you.
So the town let them change that without, did the selectmen
The
change-
professional engineer,
change all-
Lawrence, we hired a professional firm to do the engineering and the bid work and help review the bids, make a recommendation on the company that we went with, because we only had 2 bids that came in. With that, they managed that entire process. With the changes that had to be done, we had to sign that as a board, which was done. And Mike was the one at the chair at the time. He's the one that signed the document. All those documents were signed before the town meeting. So the contract was in place with a fixed price, complete. So removing all the culverts, bringing in any fill that needed to be done, all the engineering work, all the permit work, all that had to be done. The cost of the new materials for the bridge and the construction of the bridge, and then the DOT approved guardrails. So it was a complete package done so that when the voters saw what they were voting on at the town meeting from the picture, they knew exactly what they were getting for a bridge, and it was approved.
Well, the picture that was shown at town meeting is the plan that's in the office.
The one that was shown at town meeting is a conceptual plan, because it's actually a bridge that was built, a timber bridge that was built, but wasn't our bridge, because our bridge wasn't built when that picture was taken.
So they didn't know what they was getting.
Yeah, we did. It was all spelled out in the contract.
You just said that wasn't the big building.
The visual explanation of here's what this bridge is going to be looking like as a timber bridge with I-beam construction supporting it. The wood rails on the sides. That was what was presented. That's what was approved by the town meeting. And I didn't hear any big negatives during that entire period of time, because we had a shot at getting the USDA grant, which we ultimately did. So this whole bridge thing came in under budget by in the neighborhood of $70,000+. So what the town approved, we actually came in under budget as a result of the USDA grant that Mike got us.
How did you come in on the budget when it went up, with 377 and went up 28,000, we paid 405,000 for this bridge. How'd that come in on the budget?
Because the town had approved, and I don't have the number off the top of my head, the town had approved a number like 286 or 290 or something. And the final price of the bridge after the grant was like 238. So we ended up, the town saved money because of the way that bridge was designed, marketed, grants to offset the cost and the bill. So we have a bridge that's basically designed to be a long-term bridge for under budget.
If the bridge come in at 238, why did we pay 500?
Because the other amount of money was the USDA grant.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
So we
USDA
paid-
grant on top of
right.
what the
We
town paid.
$28,000 more than what the bid came in.
No,
Did we pay 405,000 for that bridge?
yes, or more.
Wasn't the original bid 377?
I don't remember I'm sure that's in here, Lawrence. I haven't looked at that yet. But I'll look at that. But I believe the final contract that we signed that went to town meeting had the prices on it. And the good news is somewhere in this pile, I have that. And I'll review it and I'll make sure from a standpoint of the documents, I'll make sure you get copies of them.
Yeah, he went up $28,000 because of the cost of the steel, but he
Yep.
left home over 450 feet of those big I-beams.
Steel did cost more, price did go up. That is correct.
And he lugged home 450 feet of those I-beams.
I wasn't there to measure them, so I don't know what he's gonna know, if anything.
Okay,
Lawrence, the bridge was built and it was built under budget. You know, the thing I want to look at is, as I'm doing some of my homework, is the different projects you were working on when you were a selectman. I'm trying to find one that came in under budget. I'm seeing a lot of them that came in over budget because they were never fully spec'd out and bid as a package. It was piecemeal addition. So I'm doing that homework too, so I can help give you that information to show that what we did as a complete package, paid for upfront, agreed to before the town meeting, and then built under budget is probably a better, more professional way to do it than the town has done it in the past. And I will say the same thing going to Bailey Road. It needs to be a totally professionally engineered and managed bridge build.
if we paid more than what the original bid was, I don't know how you got it, did it come in under budget?
I
That
just
is
told you,
possible.
I don't know how clear I can be.
Okay, the Stevens Road, is that gonna be pre-tax?
No, we're not doing Stevens, we're doing Bailey.
Okay,
Don't know yet. That what has been presented by CMA as a suggestion is to do a precast. It may not come back that way when the bids are actually submitted after the site review with whoever wants to bid on that bridge. So at this stage of the game, the CMA engineers that did the Providence Lake drainage plan came back and said, yes, a 12, 15, or I think an 18-foot width would be what they'd look at it, and 15 gives us plenty of extra water under the bridge, so to speak, for anything that might be 100-year plus flood. It's still gotta go, it's still gotta be engineered out, it's gotta be bid out, and then we'll see what happens when we do the site meeting. You saw in the contract you got what the proposed schedule is for upfront engineering, permitting, all the way through the construction project.
yes, and I also see in that contract where they left out a lot of things. Number one being the construction administrative services. That's to be determined, it says.
Yep.
Well, on the Snow Road Bridge, that had all gone out, it had been designed, gone out for bid, got the bids in, the water the bid, the whole thing, the permitting for the wetlands and everything. Come November, September, they got the grant up with his price, $66,500.
Had no
So-
correlation between the two.
So, but what I'm
You
saying.
can paint the
is,
picture, but it had no correlation between the two.
He doesn't have any figure down for that.
It was
So
a,
at
it
town
was a
meeting-
variable number, and he actually came in under the price that he gave us to do the engineering oversight. So the number we had been given, and I don't know it off the top of my head what it is, I will look at that, figure it out what it is. We actually came in under that number in the end.
So when we go to town meeting, you're not gonna know what that cost is.
Yes, we are.
Who says to be determined?
We'll see. We're going to have bids in, decision made on who the contractor is gonna be, and a signed contract prior to town meeting. And it'll be contingent upon the town approving the amount of money for the bridge contract.
You've already signed this contract
No, the bridge construction contract,
with HEB.
we've only designed that's the engineering piece and some of the oversight in the early stages of it. It's not the actual construction contract. That's gonna be for a whole lot more money than they've got on that sheet.
So if that's gonna be more money, why wasn't that put out bid? That was way over the $15,000.
We have used, and I think I covered this last week, but I'll cover it again. We have used for the last 2 to 3 years, after a qualified review of engineers, using the procurement ordinance, which basically says preference to a firm in Carroll County. The only sizable firm in Carroll County just happened to be HEB. They also have to come in with a cheaper price. So they started work on it. We've used them in multiple areas with engineering, Pine River, Snow Road, Bailey Road. Emergency stuff, follow-up stuff that needed to be done to be able to do this bridge, because the CMA engineering part was a little later than we had wanted. They had already done emergency, HEB had already done emergency repair surveys and permits for that repair that was done with the DES. And they had a lot of the information already in there. It made sense to continue using the firm the town has been using for a while because of their proven track record and their cost savings to the town to do this next piece. So we have a line, like you mentioned last week, legal has legal. We have a line called contracted services, and that's what this is for. It's designed to pay professional services.
So what you're telling me is $94,300 was he was the cheapest engineer. So that's the word.
Lawrence, I don't know where, that number you're throwing out, off the top of my head, don't have it.
It's in his bill.
We got a signed contract. We followed the ordinance. So you can disagree with it, that's okay. We signed, all three of us agreed to approve that contract in September. And I signed it at that point in time. So HEB came on in September to do the work, to get us in a position to have a contract signed before town meeting.
Just between you and I, Chuck,
No, it's between you and me and the rest of the world. I got it, go ahead.
you better look at that contract good, because there's a lot of things in the town has to pay for. That ain't even in HEB's.
And Lawrence, when we finally get the picture of what the whole thing is going to cost, there'll be a top line number to be presented to the town. Here's what this bridge is gonna cost. Here's how this bridge is gonna be funded. The information will be there. It'll be spelled out.
Fine. Just saying, you ought to take a good look at that contract that you signed.
Actually have started, I read a good portion of it yesterday, but I'll go back and reread it again on your behalf.
Good.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Public comment.
Yeah, hold on one second.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Collins,
So, one of the things you're gonna find with the Snow Road Bridge project is the most detailed and well-documented project that I believe the town has ever seen. We were involved with the USDA, who had 30 points that we had to meet. Part of why some things adjusted after town meeting is the town appropriated $300,000 to build a bridge. At that point, because things weren't finalized, the contractor with the lowest bid had $377,000 as it stood. We didn't have that much money in the budget to accept it. It was contingent upon the town approving moving forward. So we didn't have the money to move forward, but the town approved us to try and solve that financial issue. What we did
and I
was,
believe at the town meeting, you brought up that you had already applied for the USDA grant for $250,000.
correct, to which we were approved. Now, along with that, our engineers, because it was, the design wasn't a complete design by the builder. He had what he would give us for a bridge, basically. But a lot of things that you pointed out, core borings from the previous attempt at Snow Road were not even anywhere near the bridge, some of them, and they were inconclusive. So you couldn't determine what you needed. Initially, spread footings were considered, which is just putting concrete down on the ground, basically. Piles, which get driven into the ground, give you much more stability and less movement. It's just a better way of doing it. So when we looked at the data as this evolved after town meeting, the Board of Selectmen is tasked with building a bridge for $300,000 cost to the town, or less. That was our mandate. The board then can negotiate any contracts and design changes, which there were several, because we wanted a better built better built bridge than some of the initial design concepts would allow for. So there was some give and take on that. But this whole process took about 2 years in development, year and a half, something more than that, whatever it was, in which case steel did rise in price. Now, with the USDA involved, our minimum price was $214,700 that the town would have to pay to recognize the $250,000 back. We spent somewhere around $235 and change. So we did come in well under budget, or $234 and change, maybe it was.
238 according to the note I had yesterday. So
No, it's okay. Well, I haven't got all the latest.
Yep.
238. So still a significant amount of money under from what the town was going out of pocket on. We did not spend $300,000. In the meantime, though, working with the USDA, they had their engineers involved. Tom Levin at GM2, who was designing the bridge for the contractor, the onus was on them to meet the standards we want and stamp everything, which you have. And HEB was reviewing these. Now, the contracted services part over the bridge was an add-on later. What you did is you got everything to town meeting, but we had a certain amount of money we could spend. We came in under budget and we provided full and complete oversight of this bridge, so that when people like Mr. Edwards come in with concerns and he feels there's been something not done correctly, you have all the documentation to disprove those allegations, because it was done correctly. And we as the board authorized change orders. Changes that came in that were presented were design changes that everybody here, well, Tom, yourself and myself, were apprised of through our engineer. Everything's fully documented with the engineering company. You've got all kinds of documents that are, there was a revision to the plan, say, and there's a lot of information in there as to the changes in documentation going forward. There were only 2 bids, and one of those bids was from GW Brooks. Put in a whole different concept than what was put out there on the initial plan. That was a qualified bridge design. So we entertained that. The only reason we didn't go with it was the price was significantly higher, over $100,000 higher. So we weren't pigeonholed into some picture on the wall or some conceptual plan that we worked off of to get this project in front of the voters. with a whole, doing it right. Prior to this, 2016 budget committee through 2017, going to town meeting. We had a number of projects put together by the Board of Selectmen. Snow Road Bridge was one. Went off the rails, never got done. Price was sky high. You had 2 culverts, Molly Philbrook, which was problematic and cost the town a lot of money, kept washing out. There was a warrant article for that, and Pine River Road, $25,000. No engineering, went off the rails, never got done, failed project, never even attempted. We know what happened on both of those. Then you had another warrant article in for $35,000. And as follows my mind, to paint a bridge that was never designed to have paint on it. It had fractures through the foundation, the deck was in disrepair, steel was rotted out, but the board presented $35,000 to paint these things away. Benjamin Moore does not make a paint that will do this. If you had a qualified engineering undertaken and brought forward ahead of time, probably all of these things could have been avoided and we could have actually made progress. That's why we're doing this. That's why in, I believe it was 2017, that same time, the line for contracted services or professional services was added so that if we're dealing with a survey dispute issue or design issues, we could rely on this funding to at least get us to phase 1 and getting in front of the voters. So we have informed voters with a design for a project. That's what it was based on. In the zoning, the procurement ordinance, this came about in 2016. 2 selectmen voted not to wait for this. And we would have put that Stevens Road culvert out for bid had they waited 5 days. What we got was something that doesn't match any of the actual plans that were planned, shop plans existed there. And that's why the guardrails are out in the road. It doesn't fit. The guardrails are just horrific. They're on posts that are like what we put stop signs on that you see every spring that are flattened down by plows or cars. And I think the town has a liability there because those guardrails are substandard. So if anybody goes through them, we need to avoid this kind of stuff. The town can have good projects and good things in it. Snow Road Bridge is an example of it. It's a modern design, it's well built, and we did well for the taxpayer. So I don't know, there's a history here of failure. You guys are trying to fix that, and that's all it's going on.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We are going to basically recess till 10:30 when Rebecca comes in. Until then, do you gentlemen have anything else that you want to add to the table? All right, it is about 10 minutes of 10 now. Rebecca's,
You may want to say next meeting,
yeah.
we don't have a budget next week.
Budget committee meeting is not the 14th, it is the following, whatever that schedule was. So we voted.
It's not tonight either.
No,
No.
no,
January.
it was-
January.
I think it was the 4th, I think. Thank you for bringing it up, Lenny. Yeah, they decided at the meeting the other night that because of the progress that has been made so far, that they did not need to meet in December anymore. And next selectmen's meeting, December 14th, will be here at 9 AM. Anything else?
No.
Good, all right.
Anybody left
Good,
this
I'm
didn't know
sorry,
it wasn't budget.
Mr. Regal.
If you don't, what is the agenda for Rebecca when she comes in?
It's her monthly report,
All right.
so it literally, it's
So there are no outstanding things that will be decided, that it's just her report.
yeah, it's her report. I mean, there's a lot of activity going on. There's follow-up with permit problems. There's follow-up with some legal issues with, stuff that people are not basically responding to anything that needs next level follow-up. So she's gonna come in and basically present her report. We actually have a report ahead of time. We've seen it. So, it's over the last year and a half, it's grown from less than a page to upwards of a page and a quarter, a page and a half. And that isn't even, enforcement of stuff really hasn't even started, so. Okay. Vicky?
I thought I heard someone say something about a special town meeting or something about the oil or price?
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Public hearing.
Oh, public, I'm sorry,
That's
been
next,
talking about towns
next
Okay.
Tuesday.
next Tuesday.
All right, folks, thank you very much for your time. We'll be back at 10:30. Yeah. Yep. All right, folks, we're resuming the meeting a little bit early because Rebecca showed up. And her appointed time, we had it incorrect in our documents. And we're reviewing her monthly report with her now. So the 347 Green Mountain Road looks like we're finally making progress after what, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, I had hoped at the planning board meeting last week to hear that she had already put in her special use permit application. But it didn't appear that she had, but she had talked to me about the documents. So she is planning on doing that. Seems like a very nice person. I've talked to her on the phone and exchanged emails. And her difficulty was the house was in much worse shape than she realized when she bought it, which is always the case. And she had health and safety issues she had to deal with for her and her family, having to do with the house. And I apologized for being a pain in the butt, but I said we really needed to move on this. And part of the reason I wanted to move on it was I felt that if we got her through, that it could be moved out while the ground was frozen, which is the safest
That'd be
way since
perfect.
it's in the wetland.
Yeah.
So she can get her application through. She's got someone already lined up to take it down. She just needs the permit to do that. I will issue a demo permit for her the minute she needs it.
Okay.
So that's finally, we can hope that in another month or two, after how many years, that will be off the list.
Yes, 18. 3 years.
Yeah.
3 plus.
2 years, one death.
Yeah, well,
one
family,
change of
family
ownership.
can get in the way on some of the timelines.
I'm very impressed with what Mark Gilliard has done down on Gray Fox Road. I suspect, not unlike some of our other junkyard situations, that his significant other there, I don't know whether it's married or not, was a little of the pressure behind it. I've often seen that, so glad you've put the screws to him kind of thing.
Yeah.
So there's still a few things there, but I have a clear understanding of why, which truck body is still there, because it's gonna get moved onto another vehicle. But the biggest thing about it is you go back behind the house, all the way back down to the wetlands, there's nothing. Absolutely cleared out. And all the miscellaneous tires are all cleared out. He's got a stack of truck tires to go for another vehicle. He's got 2 more vehicles he was gonna get rid of, and then, a favorite brother-in-law's Pontiac or something, the kind of thing that we would just never even notice in the ordinary course of events if it hadn't been for the other stuff. So what I told them was, I'm gonna take you off the list. And I said, I'm gonna check every 6 months, make sure that it doesn't catch up again. So I was very pleased with that. And they're a few months away. They think maybe this spring. They've been renting to buy. This is the ownership is property management. But that's who's listed on the card. But
So let me ask
by
quick question.
spring, they should be the technical owners as well.
Okay. You just mentioned you're gonna do follow-up in 6 months.
Yeah.
I'd rather not have it case closed. I'd rather have it, follow up roughly 6 months down the road, so it still shows as being,
I was just trying to get the list shorter.
I wanna make sure the list is accurate,
Yeah.
because
okay.
people don't believe we have the kind of activity in town.
Okay, I'll leave it on for the first 6 months cycle, and if it's okay, then I'll just change it to a really narrow line.
Yeah.
Just
That's good.
trying to get us onto one page here.
We can shrink your phone too.
Oh, God, you can't even read it.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm already down to Arial Narrow 9.
yeah, it's like nice, close enough. All right.
Misty Mountain Farm, you know, is ongoing. Dave is taking charge of Hafford since he's bailed on 3 different appointments for inspection. And I have to put that on my note to the attorney because he asked for 30 days after the court hearing to get it cleaned up, and he didn't even get us on the property within 30 days. So Dave, since he is here many more hours than I am, can just put the screws to him in order to do a site visit and take pictures. And then it's basically one that's, it's either illegal or Dave looking at it.
Yep.
So. Tassel and Noble, I just haven't had a chance to do anything about.
No,
Those are
are
both.
both of
interesting.
those headed toward legal, do you think?
Well,
I know you were working with them.
yeah, I'm working with them. The difficulty with them is that they are such long-lasting uses that I fear that they might actually have an argument for a grandfathered use. So I'm trying to work with them in a non contentious way, because I don't want us to get into a can of worms of arguing with that someone has had this use since, you know, they were knee high to a grasshopper, and who the hell are we to tell them they can't do it? I'd rather see if we can figure some way to make what they're doing acceptable. I know Van Tassel, I've talked to his son, I know they're trying to clean it up and they have been doing it. I just haven't been up there recently, so.
Personal opinion, as long as they're working with you, great. If they stop working with you on that last point you made, I'd rather reach out to Matt and basically find out if there's
Alright.
any issues.
Well,
But as
then-
long as they're working with you and there's
Right.
progress, let it go.
Right.
That's my
okay,
opinion.
Perfect guidelines. I mean, you're all in agreement, because
Yeah.
that's my feeling as well, that our purpose here is not to be punitive, but to try and bring people into some kind of acceptable state of whatever.
Speaking of the one on the Noble, what about the property next to them?
Oh, something happened there again?
Well, I mean, there's 6 or 7 vehicles and whatever out there.
Closer to 25?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's changed hands a couple of times in the last few years, because it used to belong to someone who used to complain about Noble. So, haven't been out there. You know, there's so many people in town that have a lot of vehicles. I mean, and all of them registered and all of them legal. I actually don't pay much attention anymore if I see a yard with 6 or 7 or 8 cars in it, you know. Oftentimes, it's just a household that has, you know, 2 adult kids at home and everybody has 2 cars.
Yeah, I don't think this is the case, but maybe.
I'll do a drive-by. I'll make a note.
I mean, I can see them saying, well, you're picking on me, but what about them? Type of thing.
Yeah, understood. Okay, Waddington evidently has finally got his act together and is starting to do, I've recommended to him, since he is really running a business, to go to the ZBA for a contractor storage yard to see if that can be adjusted in a way to allow the temporary storage of some of the larger items that he picks up in his collection and then sells again. I mean, I can't help but feel good that stuff is being kept out of landfill.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And so if there's a way to make, I mean, he's way off the beaten track, which is why I
Has
bought that property.
David been on that property?
I think so.
The reason I'm asking is I've got it on pretty good authority that there's somebody living in a RV.
Okay, well,
You can't see it from the road.
yeah, okay, you can't see anything from the road. Well, why don't I send David out on that? Because he'll have to call ahead.
Yep.
Because Bob, I think he's pretty fussy about people going on the property. But if he hasn't been out there, then this is a chance for him to do an assessment and an information gathering thing at the same time. Susie Collins, oh, that's a heartbreak. They're in court. They said we need till the end of November to get it cleaned up. We're getting a dumpster, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing the other. And I went out on the 30th. I mean, I, you know, left it to the last minute, you know, because of schedules and everything else going on. So I really did. I wore it around on November 30th thinking I'm gonna all these ones that we thought were gonna close off. No change, I mean, as far as I know, so that's in the note to Matt.
Good.
And that's it on the junkyards. Still inching forward on them, I'm feeling reasonably comfortable that we're making progress even in tiny baby steps. Randall Dave was out there, so we're doing a new letter. The letters that I sent got returned, so he's gonna hand deliver. Basically, they've got an RV that's been there a while. That I don't know whether it's seasonal living or whatever. Remember Road, Paul is just on here because until I hear that their shoreland remediation has been passed and approved, I'm not gonna lose track of them. Me and I think we all know what's going on there. They missed it. I mean, I don't understand it. They missed the deadline for the site plan review, the December meeting, which it seems to me astonishing.
You'd think with all the effort that's been put in so far, they'd have taken care of that.
And I can't tell whether they're just being casual or stupid. Calkins, that's probably ready to go. David gone out there. I just, we've got permits. It's a question of, it's a sort of unused property with old activity on it that needed to get permits in place for it. So it's pretty straightforward. It would have had a permit issued on here if the time had allowed for it. That are going out, that's pretty obvious. Leach, the RV in the driveway down here on Green Mountain Road, they both got permits for them. But he didn't send in a permit for the sheds, so I sent him in a permit application act with the permit, so that should come through. I talked to him on the phone. He was sick, that seems to be the standard excuse. Nolan, I said still waiting. He's in fact, he's keeping regular communication with me. They thought they were gonna do permit by notification for the shoreline. That's like, really? You thought that? But anyway, turned out they couldn't for what they're doing. So it's taking longer, but they have got engineers on board and stuff they're planning on doing, so. New Biggin, that's a problem with the second driveway, miscommunication. He thought that I had said that he was fine. I had said, no, you need to close it off, but you also need to get a permit for it. And that's all stemming from a neighbor complaint. And from my perspective, once he says he can't access the back of the property without the second driveway. If that's the case, then he gets a second driveway and there's nothing, I mean, monitoring three-wheelers and ATVs and off-tracks and stuff like that that bother neighbors. I don't know what we can do about that, but it doesn't seem to be a zoning issue. Yeah, the tracker said she came to the planning board meeting via Zoom. Lots of misunderstanding about that piece of property on sort of everybody's part. Her feeling that since it was a residential property, she could do what she liked. The planning board saying that because it's a commercial use that she needs to go for site plan approval. Me misunderstanding because the paperwork wasn't in front of me, that when the planning board approved the reopening of the store before, they approved it as an existing non-conforming use, which meant if she was going to add structures to it, it needed to go back to the ZBA for a expansion of a non-conforming use. So it's like everybody involved was misinformed.
Do you feel based on the conversation that people now understand?
Well, I think everyone understands, except perhaps the owner. I'm not sure whether
Okay.
she completely understands. She's so sure that since it's where she lives, that it's not that it's a residential property. She doesn't understand the differentiation in our uses. And here's another difficulty is that we don't really have anyone available to walk someone through that. I mean, except me. And walking someone through figuring out how to apply to the ZBA. I mean, it's not really part of my job description, but I don't know who else would be doing it. So it's an interesting aspect of how we handle the land use stuff. I mean, It should be Nate, but he's not as available necessarily, and certainly not available in person, so. Patino, I don't know if you were familiar with the place down on Miller Road. It was logged in the last couple of years. about-
First one on the way in.
Yeah, both sides on the
Yep,
way in,
okay.
yeah. And what happened when he logged it was it exposed all those little cabins that were part of something that he took apart like 8 years ago. And he said, oh, I'm gonna assemble this with them. And I said, well, get a permit when you've decided what you're gonna do. And then I forgot about it. The trees grew up around them. So anyway, he is going to, so that's a follow-up in the spring idea of where they're gonna move it to, and hope we get it off the list by then, that he will assemble them all as little attachments to existing garages and mobile homes and stuff, or get rid of them. It is 2 separate lots. Massey, that's down on Bonnyman Road. There was a barn there that burned a few years back. And they've been sort of cobbling together pens on the foundation of the barn for their animals. And I kept saying, you need a permit for them. They say, oh no, we're gonna move them, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And I say, oh, okay, and then drive back, and they haven't done it. So I'm gonna call Faye up and say, listen, why don't you just apply for a permit? $30 and I'll stop pestering you.
Are they pens or sheds,
Uh,
lean-tos?
or a hybrid of the two.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that odd area where we don't really have a directive or an acknowledgement in our zoning ordinance of whether animal pens that are sort of thrown together enclosures are, I mean, my interpretation of the zoning ordinance is they require building permits.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly the planning board could decide to do an exclusion for animal sheds below a certain size. I suppose you could argue that if the barn were permitted, that if the foundation is still there, that they're just building on the same foundation, but still the barn's been built for a while. So, I haven't gotten to the idea of the gradated fees, but certainly this would be the kind of thing where we want it at the lowest level of the fees. We don't want to make it onerous for someone that wants to enclose their sheep and pigs in the winter. We want to make it easy for them. Lakefront Landing Marina, they're still haven't figured out how to do their site plan. They did not come back for the December meeting either. So I don't know how to, I mean, I'm comfortable with the idea that he stopped loading onto the Province Lake Road site. And I don't have an argument for telling me he has to haul that stuff off. The difficulty for me was that it was going to resolve the problem with the Green Mountain Road lot. And I'm loath, if he can't get it together to do the Province Lake Road one, to start proceedings against the other one. So my instinct is to say, we'll get it worked out eventually.
But that one on Green Mountain Road's been there a long time.
It's been there a long time, and I was told by an earlier select board to just let it be.
Well, at this stage, because the comment he made to you, that he was eventually gonna move the stuff over to Province Lake when that was approved.
Yeah.
And then I heard subsequently in a meeting, he said he intends on using both of them. I would prefer, this is me, we'll get the other two input, that we start the Green Mountain. Let him know that he's got to go in and do that one too.
Right. In fact, that was what was going to be as part of the process as soon as he had the one on the other. But I'll take your advice at this point. Start.
How do you feel? I mean, I just soon start moving forward on that one because it's been too long, but.
Well, he's moving off of there onto supposedly the new one maybe.
Well, that's what he told
Right.
Rebecca. Subsequently, in a
But he
public
said
meeting, he
don't
said he was gonna, no, subsequent to public meeting, he said he was gonna use both of them. And I don't mind if you want to use both, but if you're gonna use both and go through the process.
Well, I think what works for me is the planning board is fine tuning the outdoor storage and warehouse parts of the zoning ordinance. And it seems to me that letting him know that once he starts moving the stuff from there to the Green Mountain Road site, we're gonna require, to the Province Lake, or we're gonna require the Green Mountain Road site to be in compliance with the ordinance, is the way to approach it. And it would make sense for it to be in compliance with the ordinance as rewritten. At this point, the difficulty is we don't really have outdoor storage as an aspect of the zoning ordinance. So he sort of fell between the cracks because he didn't ask for anything, and we didn't say, and then it's been there a long time. So, I mean, I was hoping the move to the other would serve as the leverage, but I'll reach out to him and ask him what's going on. It's entirely possible he found someplace else to stash those boats this winter, dry dock at the marina or something, and is just waiting on it. So we'll see. But I'll get back in touch.
All right.
I've got a note on that now. Okay, I got a couple of permits from the Pine River Road folks, and Matt had said go ahead and issue the permits. And I haven't done it because the permit for the RV isn't necessary because it's not being used as an RV. It's shut. And the permit that for what they're calling a shed, it's not a shed, and I have difficulty issuing a permit for something that isn't what it is. They're calling it a shed, but it was built as a tiny house on wheels. They were gonna sell it and get it off the property. They never did, but it has a wood stove, it has propane, it has all sorts of stuff. And I want Dave to go out and take a look. But there was some question about whether the owners would let him on the property. So there's some maneuvering that has to happen there. But that's why it's showing as just applications. Owens and White, Dave's gone up and looked at the property. That's the big green building on the corner here. He's gone up and looked at it. He's going to meet with them, discuss what the kind of mixed use is. Sit down, and then they will figure out where they fit into going for what kind of permit through the planning board or the ZBA. And I'm kind of thinking that I might do the same for Burweiler, because I haven't heard back from him since I said he's the guy right across from the antique store diagonally. Built a little log cabin that the permit for that was for a workshop, and I was living in it. And the property isn't big enough for an ADU, and his options are either to tear down the main building, which is too bad because it's a loss of a historic building, but we can't stop him if he wants to tear down the main building. But he does need to get in compliance, either by doing that or getting a variance for an ADU on an undersized lot, or he could connect the two. And I told him that. I stopped by the site visit. I said, listen, why, you can just connect your cabin to the main house with a, with a breezeway, fully enclosed. And then you just got part of the house you're not using and a new livable part of it. But I've seen no activity on that. So it's me or Dave is going to go out and lean on him about that. Some of these things are better suited for Dave anyway, because he's here more hours. Seabury, that's just the database had the wrong address for her, still had her in Wolfboro, and she's actually evidently out there. Sanborn Farm, that was an interesting one, came to me because, again, I was the person in the office, and I've gotten another email from, and it seems like the Historic District Commission is quite picking up the cues that they need to say, yes, your proposal to rebuild the stone wall to look like the original stone wall is great, go ahead and do it, which is all they're asking. A wall was taken down for logging, and the Historic District wants the wall restored, not just a row of boulders, but actually a stone wall. And I'm sure that, what we did on my property over in Tamworth is we just had them restore all of it, but a little narrow portion that was an access way, and made it look like it was an old pasture entrance. But the 10 or 12 boulders that can only be moved by a loader doesn't look very historic.
Nope.
And I can understand that.
Plus they left all that stone.
Oh, the stone surface.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, again, it's up to HTC. I mean,
yeah, we meet Monday nights.
oh, you meet this Monday?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, the email that I got from him last week was copied to the HTC address, but I don't know whether anyone has responded.
I haven't seen it yet. so
But, I mean, there's really
Susan will
nothing,
probably get it out. but-
there's really nothing I can do without a directive from the HTC of what it wants, so. And then the others are just permits. And I don't really have much else. Got an application here that came on a building permit from someone. It was in my box, Kevin Fortin, no check, and it's for a pellet stove installation. And I just need to pass the word that fuel items,
Is that for the fire department? Is that what they doing
I think
those?
that's what Randy was.
That should be for Randy.
yeah, I
So
don't,
I can take that. and
yeah,
put it
I just don't know who
I
gave,
don't know where it came from.
yeah, okay, yes.
Rebecca?
Pellet stoves, gas fire
So-
places.
I love the outline. Now, question I have for you.
Yeah.
So you can get full credit. Do you have a laundry list of the year-to-date ones you've completely solved? Or you just put a number down here, cases, total cases for the year, rather than just the outstanding?
No, I just, what I have, and I have it digitally as well. What I have is,
Well, I'm not looking for you to list them all.
yeah,
I'm just thinking, put something down here. Look, these are the open cases. These are the cleared cases. And here's the total number of cases year-to-date, kind of thing.
well, I do the permits here today in my annual report.
Yep.
So would you like a summary of the other kinds of things as well?
No, I just want the number. Because what is important to know is to let people, because people don't think there's much going on in zoning.
Okay, so.
And I want to show them that there's a lot of activity going on. in zoning.
Okay, so activity log, yeah, I call this a property activity log, because it wasn't just permitting.
Okay,
It used to be a permit log, we used to keep permit log, and I stopped keeping it when I started doing this. So maybe we need an activity total,
that's it.
okay, I'll make a note of that, some kind of activity total.
That'll present a more rounded picture of the real world.
Yeah. It is, and I can't say enough how handy it is having Dave do stuff. And I think it's a win-win because he gets information for assessing, gets stuff up to date. Most often gets something changed from one thing to another. And it's two eyes on a property, you know, I can go out and look at it and say, you go look at it, you tell me what you think. And they'll say, oh, that's non-residential activity, we need to do this. And so it's a good use of his expertise.
I'm good. Yeah. Good. Rebecca, thank you very
Yeah.
much.
The only other thing is I'm gonna, given the rise of COVID in the state of New Hampshire, we're #1 in the nation, aren't we proud? I'm gonna have a mask policy out back, whether or not vaccinated. I've got 4 acquaintances who are vaxxed and boosted, who have gotten it,
Just make sure your signage is on both doors.
Yeah. because I can't afford to get sick since I'm looking after Jeffrey.
Understand.
So, all right,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Taking that.
All right, anything else before us today? Any non-public meeting?
I have just
I have nothing. Okay,
Like a motion adjourned.
all those in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you. Do it all along.
Well, the key thing is take a look at the budget actual. And
Yeah.
where we've got the